Hey guys, so my shelf is getting more and more full. Last week it was almost full to bursting, and this week I only have one extra spot. My tomatoes are taking up so much space, and I swear they have like doubled in size since I transplanted them. They're getting so big, and this situation that they're in, it's not super ideal because if you look at it from the side, you can see that the ends are bending in because the light is here in the middle, and my trays are long, and they're too long to be putting this way, but I don't have enough room to do this any differently. Ideally, I would only have 6 trays on here, and they would all be sideways like that, and I've got plenty of light for my seedlings like this, but as you can see, I have too many seedlings. Starting tomorrow though, I will be putting tomatoes outside. I think, looking at the weather, after tonight, it shouldn't be getting below 40 degrees Fahrenheit at night for at least a week. So that'll be a good amount of time for them to be outside and just getting used to being in the sun. What I'll probably do is put them out on the porch for the first day, which is mostly shaded, and then I'll put them on the steps. And the way that the lighting at my place works is the porch steps, the farther down you go the steps, the more hours of sunlight those plants are going to get. So I can just step them down the steps, and that is basically like hardening them off. If it does get too cold, I'll have to start bringing them inside, but I think most days from here on out shouldn't have very much danger of frost. So this is going to look a lot less crowded very soon. So besides tomatoes, I have peppers. This whole section with the red tags is hot peppers. And you can see most varieties have come up. I'm missing just a couple. On all of this is basil. My cinnamon basil, actually, I only have, 2 plants in there. It's usually more robust than that. I'm actually very surprised. I've got plenty of holy basil. I've got Thai basil this year for the first time. Regular Emily basil, purple basil, and lemon basil. All the basils are looking really good. I'll probably wait at least a day, probably more like a week or two before I start separating these out into individual containers because I need to make sure that the tomatoes are not going to need this space. Also, very interestingly, my tomatillos down here, these were planted the same time as the tomatoes, and they're taking quite a bit longer to get going. They're actually very frail. They looked pretty good, and then all except this one are looking very meh. And then I had a couple of purple tomatillos come up, then just immediately shrivel and die. They did not ever look very robust. They had trouble getting their little seed heads off as well. So it looks like I won't have very many tomatillos. I might need to replant if I want more. Sweet peppers are doing great. They are also going to need the space as soon as the tomatoes move out. These are getting a little crowded. They will do a lot better and not get stunted if I give them their own little cups. And then over here, we've got all these zinnias that honestly, I was not planning on potting them up. I was going to plant them out straight from this tray, but they're getting big so fast. All of these other herbs are just starting to really come in, and then the eggplant, these blue tags, are taking their sweet time germinating. All right, let's go ahead and go outside and check on everything outside. It is almost officially spring, and everything is very much acting like it. This is the season where things start changing much faster. If you've been with me all winter watching these tours, you've seen mostly the same thing over and over. But finally, we are starting to see major growth in some of the stuff out here. Also, check it out. I've got a brand new arched trellis. This is actually the old trellis from the berry patch, which we'll look at closer to the end of the video. But suggestions for what to plant on this being like right over my path and kind of an entry feeling kind of trellis to this area. What would you put on it? right here at the base of that new arched trellis. This is where lemongrass was last year. It does not look like it's going to come back. I might still be surprised, but I don't think it will. So that makes me glad that I saved a few sprigs of it when I was harvesting. And this not coming back here, given the fact that I chose to put this trellis here, is honestly a good thing. Moving on to the soon-to-be tomato trellis, we've still got fava beans here. Last week we saw them just starting to flower. This particular one is still in the process of making its flowers right there. There's a couple we'll see later on that might have started making pods already. This one has some open flowers. And we'll see if my estimate from last week of 4 weeks till harvest is accurate. I don't know. These are looking like they haven't even really been setting fruit yet. In this second row here, you can see much better now that I have onions down the sides. This side, onions come to about here, and then this side has onions and garlic all the way up the side. And then we've got a bunch of lettuces in the middle here in the front, as well as a couple of younger fava bean plants and a couple of dwarf peas, which may or may not make anything for me. These ones also starting to flower. Lettuces are growing quite a bit, but are definitely not big enough to start harvesting off of yet. I'm thinking maybe 1 to 2 more weeks and I'll be able to harvest off of these. And then, they will start exploding in growth. Check out how robust these garlic plants look. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're on their 6th leaf, looking really good. And the onion plant's also looking pretty good. This one has 4 leaves that I can see, doing really well. And then all the way at the back of this row is where the Brussels sprouts are. I have been pretty busy and haven't actually harvested any Brussels sprouts off of these this week. This one has the best looking actual Brussels sprouts that are closed up, as opposed to all the rest of these ones that have very open looking Brussels sprouts. So hopefully I can remember which of the 2 varieties that I planted it is, and do more of that one. It's also very interesting to me that I'm getting tight Brussels sprouts from it now as it is getting warmer, which is not very consistent with what I have been told about Brussels sprouts, especially because our warm to cold swings are even more extreme than they have been. Right at the front of the 3rd row, right down here by the path, the volunteer cilantro that I've had is continuing to grow nice. I did try planting some out there, and it just doesn't really want to grow anywhere except for right next to the stone where I walk all the time, apparently. Whenever I need to be reminded that plants just want to grow, all I have to do is look at all the stuff that volunteers in my path. I've got the cilantro, but I've also got quite a few path lettuces. If we come down here, I've got this lettuce here in the path. I've got this Merlot and another little baby Merlot coming up from within the thick, dense wood chips. Not a very habitable spot for a baby little lettuce, but somehow it's doing it. So I still have not planted anything on these trellises. I kept meaning to do peas and just kept forgetting or being busy. And I think it is potentially a little late now to do that, because within about a month I'll be planting out other things on these trellises. So they'll just be empty for now. And then this back area has also almost nothing in it besides the onions along either side. These little baby brassicas are here, and I guess they're alive. They're growing quite slowly, probably because of the swings in temperatures and also the fact that they almost froze to death on their first night outside. I have had some of my forgotten potatoes coming up though. Last week I think we saw these, and you can see they definitely got frozen, but not killed. This must have come up more recently than the last time it froze overnight. I'm not going to move them. I'm just going to see what happens. But one of the new raised beds I'm putting together, I'm planning to make entirely potatoes. So even if this little potato, or I guess I don't even know how many are in here that I accidentally forgot that I planted, even if none of those make anything, I should have plenty of potatoes this year from the raised bed that I'm going to set up. And in the fourth row here, these are where the fava beans that are the biggest and healthiest looking are. They're making lots of good flowers. Let's see. I don't see any that look like they've set fruit yet, but gosh, those flowers are gorgeous. And my Romanescos at the front of this row are pretty much finishing up. There's a couple of side shoots that I still need to get. I have one head left to harvest. This one is purple for some reason, but it should be harvested probably pretty soon. It's starting to look a little loose now. Something that's not going to change very quickly, but I am going to keep checking up on, is my strawberry ground cover that I'm trying to do over here. I've got a few of these cuttings from my original plants, and they were in cups, in solo cups all winter, basically dying back every single time it froze. And they continued to live and make new leaves, so they have graduated to the ground where I'm hoping that they will fend off the Bermuda grass for me. It'll probably take at least 1 or 2 seasons for them to proliferate enough to provide actual ground cover, so maybe I'll have to mulch under them again next year, but then after that I'm assuming that they will just cover the ground the way they have in the berry patch. My little fig tree in a pot is starting to make these little buds. I'm hoping that that's a really good sign, but also this guy has some little mushroom friends that are probably helping him out as well. I still need to decide if I'm putting that in the ground. I think I am, but I don't know where yet. This entire area is still evolving actually really fast right now, and I don't know where I'm gonna want a fig tree yet. So there's a chance that this one spends another season in a container, but I think it'll probably be all right. This newest raised bed, mostly it has a row of onions in it. I did plant some radishes over here. You can see some of them have sprouted. I didn't exactly take super good care of them. I put the seeds in the ground, and then I didn't even water. I waited for it to rain. And because the mulch has been pulled back, it will dry out pretty quick. And so germination rate may not be high. I think I also put some beets in here. I think that's what's coming up right there. I also tried planting some poppies in this area, but I have seen 0 sprouts. And because I also didn't see any reseeding from last year's poppies, I'm wondering if the seeds are even viable. I might have to get a new packet of seeds and try that out. We've got an adorable friend right there. Can you see him? A little jumping spider. It's about the time when I start seeing a ton of them out here. So in addition to these raised beds I already have, I've got a few more that I'm getting set up from different companies, and I'll be talking about those each individually and then collectively as a comparison against all of them. But I'm pretty sure I know where they're all going at this point. I just have to put them together and actually fill them with something. But I'm pretty excited about this whole thing. And that also brings us over to the berry patch, which has an edited, or I guess it's a brand new trellis, edited style of trellis. You can see I've got poles at all 4 corners with not very thick, but somewhat thick wire strung between them. And hopefully what will happen is as the canes grow up, they will be contained from flopping out sideways by the wire. I also came through and pruned these. You can see that the new growth is coming in very visibly. So picking out which canes were dead and which ones were still growing was pretty easy. And this whole place looks a lot more clean and put together now that I've pulled all the dead stuff out and kind of cut everything down. This one blueberry is getting very close to flowering. Also, look at the pink on those flowers. Holy cow, these are beautiful. I hope I actually get some blueberries from these. That would be really nice. I've had these plants, I think, for a couple of years now and haven't gotten anything off of them. I had expected that it might take a while for them to get established, but they're taking a lot longer than I expected. And some of them are doing downright terribly. Like this one, it's not dead, but it's really not having a good time. It could be the acidity of my soil. I haven't done anything to make it super acidic. But I mean, this one is doing terribly, and this one right next to it is doing really great. So it's hard to tell if the soil is actually the problem or potentially the variety, because all the blueberries I have are different varieties, and I guess some of them are just doing better in my climate with my neglect than others. Oh look, we've got a bumblebee now. All the bees are starting to come out. That transitions me pretty smoothly actually into this week's rotating segment, which is seasonal insects. What sort of insects are we seeing right here at the beginning of spring, and what are they doing in the garden? So it would be kind of insane for me to actually notice and talk about every single insect that's out here, because there's a ton. I mean, most of them I'm just not even going to see because they're going to be tiny and out of sight. However, some of the major ones I'm seeing, we just saw the bumblebee. I've also seen honeybees starting to come out. I think something just landed in my hair too. Honeybees are coming out. I think they are coming from pretty nearby. I know somebody less than 2 miles away that is caring for some honeybees, so I'm wondering if they come from his place. But we've got the honeybees, the bumblebees. I've seen like 1 or 2 yellow jackets, which are concerning because those things are mean. And also the paper wasps are coming out. And if this is your first year talking with me, watching me talk about my garden, then you haven't heard me say yet that paper wasps are actually very gentle little creatures. I know that you tend to be very afraid of them. They like to make a nest like right up there by your door. But I've never been stung by one, and they're actually really good predators in the garden for keeping the population of pests down. So if you see them starting to make nests, as long as it's not like directly in your way, then I really highly suggest just leaving them alone. I've also got really just a crap ton of these guys. And I looked them up. I haven't seen them before. They are box elder bugs. And they generally infest box elder trees. However, if the population gets pretty big, they can also attack raspberries and strawberries, which is why I'm guessing that they're over here. But generally, I've been told, or I guess the internet has said, that generally the damage caused by these insects is mostly insignificant. So for me, I'm going to do nothing and just kind of watch how the situation unfolds. We also have our little jumping spider friend, which I wasn't able to find again, but jumping spiders are very harmless to humans and are very, very good predators to have in your garden. Most spiders, unless you know them to be a poisonous variety, think black widow or brown recluse, they're not really going to bother you, and they're going to do a really good job of eating all the insects that you don't want in your garden. While we were over here at the Brussels sprouts, I touched on last week, but not this week, these cabbage aphids. They are everywhere on this plant, but none of the other plants around them are bothered. So that makes me think that this particular plant is, like, in particular sick. And so these things, I could just like wash them off, but I actually do nothing with aphids except think about why this plant might be unhappy and how I could create a better environment for it to thrive in. Because a healthy plant is going to be far less susceptible to something like aphids than a sick plant. And these aphids really feel like a symptom of a very unhealthy plant and not the cause of this plant being unhealthy, if that makes sense. So again, these things, they will die off pretty soon because the cabbages won't be around for much longer. Oh man, this plant is fully infested. But again, none of these other ones, like this one is right next to it, you will not find any aphids on this plant. It is much healthier and therefore resisting the aphids. I think if I had had an infestation like that at the beginning of the season as opposed to the end of the season, I would be doing something like spraying organic rev in that area to boost the immune system of all of those plants. But because those are almost done anyway, I don't super care about it. So I'm just gonna kind of let that play out and let those aphids be food that maybe attracts ladybugs. Because something that people often forget about is if you don't actually have the food for these beneficial insects, then they're not going to come to your garden. You can release ladybugs all you want, and once they're done eating all your aphids, there's no more food, they're going to leave. So really what you're trying to do is not get rid of all the pests and only have beneficials. You're trying to build a system where those two things balance each other out and your vegetables only slightly get caught in the crossfire. You know, you want minimal damage, not devastating damage is kind of the goal. Okay, and before I let you guys go, a couple weeks ago we had talked about the seasonal weeds, and I'd mentioned that the violets were about to come back, and I just wanted to circle back and show you guys that they are in full bloom. These are the two colors of flowers that I usually see, and I come through and harvest these and dry out the flowers for a really beautiful tea. The leaves are also edible, but I haven't done just a whole lot with them. I think the flowers are very pretty. Could probably put them on salads as well. Beautiful edible flower for that. So if you liked this video and have not yet watched all of this year's garden tours, I will leave that playlist up here for you to go catch up on them. And additionally, if you like watching these videos but you don't like watching ads, you can join my Patreon. It is linked down below, and for only $1 a month you can watch these videos ad-free. You can watch them usually early, and you can also watch some custom content that I make just for my patrons. Now I have other stuff on my Patreon that you can sign up for if you feel like donating at a higher tier, but really $1 a month gets you a lot of benefits, and I would really appreciate your support. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening!